So can you start by just telling us your name and spelling it for us?
Oh, sure. Nina, Nina, Jacobs, Jacobs, Stanley, Stanley.
And Nina, what's your connection to Kent State?
I was a student, and I was in the at the demonstration, and subsequently in the parking lot at the shooting, and was there.
Maybe you can take us through your memories of the events.
Of that day?
Or of, you can start whenever you want.
Well, it was a crazy, the weekend was I did not demonstrate Friday night. It started, I believe, Friday afternoon, Friday night. And my parents were visiting that weekend because my birthday was the 8th. And they came up from Virginia. And so I heard there was, so Friday night. But then Saturday night, my parents even joined in the demonstration, the anti-war demonstration. And they were bringing up the rear. And it was just a crazy weekend. And then, the ROTC building burned down, and I saw that. I have feelings that it was very strange how fast the National Guard got in there. It was, of course, I don't know what happened with the ROTC building. But the Monday I went to class, and I knew there was going to be a demonstration at noon on the Commons, and I went. And they tried to disperse it, and they started chasing us, marching up the hill. First, a Jeep came out and said, you have to disperse, and nobody did, and everybody was ringing the bell and laughing and shouting, and then they said it was martial law, not martial, I don't know if it was martial law at that time or not, but they said we weren't allowed to have an assembly at that time. And then the troops came out, started marching up the hill. I'm sure you've heard this a lot. And I ran down the hill into the parking lot, into the Prentice Hall parking lot. And we all thought it was kind of over. I do not remember looking at the guards. I do not remember. I've seen the movies afterwards. And all of a sudden, we heard noises as we were running away in the parking lot. And my friend who I was with told me to get down. I said, why? She says, get down. She pushed me down. And, sorry. And, I never heard a gun before. I was 18 years old. I never heard it. And I got up, and I don't know who I saw. I saw somebody, but I don't remember. And I saw somebody there bleeding, and I said, I don't know. I didn't know blanks could do that to you. And I just felt I had to get out of there. I didn't stay to help. I don't know what I could have done anyway, except be in the way, but I didn't stay to help. I just had to get out of there, and I don't remember, but somehow I got back to my dorm, which wasn't far away, and I felt that they started coming around in Jeeps with bullhorns, saying that we better stay inside, we couldn't come out, and I was with my roommate in the room, and she's here tonight downstairs, and she wanted to go back out, and I pleaded with her not to, and I said, they're gonna kill us, they're gonna shoot us, I remember saying and for some reason I thought they were going to start firing in the windows. I mean, it was illogical, but that was what happened before was illogical also. So, and I remember that was the last I remember of that day. I remember somebody on the floor, because my roommate, I would have gone home with her. I was from Virginia, but she was gone. She went out again, and I remember just somebody on the floor said their parents were coming. I remember the girl's name was Carol. That's all I remember about her. And I said, "Can I go home with you?" And she said, sure. And I remember I went home. Her parents were very nice, and not the type of people you could discuss this with, I didn't think. And my dad told me he was going to he got me a plane for the next day. I got home and stayed a week and then felt I had to come back. So I came back to Ohio. And that's what I was telling, it was Carmen, is that her? Yeah, Carmen. That the FBI came to my house in Virginia. And my parents told them I was in Ohio. You tell the government where you are. And they came and looked for me in Ohio. They found me, at the home. They came to my friend's house, and they interviewed me. It was very, very frightening. They had pictures of my dorm of people in their women, in their pajamas, in their night clothes, nothing like today you see on Facebook, but, sitting around. Where'd they get these pictures? Who was up there taking pictures? Who was in the dorm that was not a student? That's what I came to the conclusion that that's what happened, that they were only concerned about finding out who burned the ROTC building and who was an activist on campus. That's what they were not concerned at all about who got killed or why or how this happened. That's how I perceived it. And and then when I went back to school, I continued at Kent State, and I went back, and the next year they had the Kent 25, they indicted 24 students, I believe, and a professor, and I was called to a deposition, and they had law students from the University of Akron were offering their help for people who wanted an attorney or somebody with them, and we went, I took advantage of that. I was scared. And these young men went with me, and they had the prosecutor from the state of Ohio or the attorney general's office, whatever, I can't tell you who it was. And he had a file on me, and he knew what was happening in my dorm room. He knew I had an argument with my father that night, it was not the night, my parents left Sunday before the shooting, but it was that Saturday night or Sunday night, I don't remember. Saturday night, had to be Saturday night. My dad was upset with me because my room was messy. He never thought there'd be a shooting that Monday, but he says, how can you live like this? Yeah, yada, 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 And the FBI knew all about it, and they thought I was having an argument. They got a little bit of it wrong. They thought my dad was upset about that I was against the war. My dad was against the war. My mother was against the war. My whole family was against the war. I said, no, my dad was not. He said, you're right, I had an argument, but my dad was mad the room was messy, and I hadn't did my laundry. And he was very upset about that. And that was, that's all they were concerned about. And it's frightening that I'm pretty sure I have an FBI file somewhere. I'm sure I do. And I did nothing wrong. I never did anything wrong. Never did one thing to hurt the government or do anything. And I have, I'm pretty sure. But they were never concerned about finding anything about these young people that died or were injured or what happened that day. They were very concerned about catching people who were demonstrating or throwing a rock or that's what they were concerned about. So that's my memory of the whole weekend about what happened and coming back that fall.
And how did that experience affect your view of the government? It's funny now that we have Obama's president. I kind of it's like, I guess I'm very biased in certain ways. Now that he's the head of our government and not Bush or Nixon or, it's funny, I'm very partisan and I guess that's wrong. But at that time it affected it terribly. I didn't trust them at all, I did not trust it. I didn't, with Nixon, of course, I didn't trust it. I don't believe anything. I guess we still don't believe anything the government says, and maybe even today. Nobody does. It's even I don't think anybody, when they say government, everybody goes, oh yeah, right. I think Watergate ruined it for everybody, and this was the beginning, this was the beginning. But, there's just, people would try to argue when I came back home to Virginia, they were demonstrating, you were where you shouldn't have been. There's no argument to that. There's none. There's no argument. How can you argue with that? There's no two sides of this. There's one side of this. It was murder and that was it. And that's all, the only way anybody sane can view this. What happened there that day and how it was covered up, and so that's how I feel. And how do you think your experience has impacted your life?
Well, impacted my life for many years. For about 7 years after, till about 1980, I was having nightmares at night. Obviously I went to a counselor. I was a nurse, and I worked at a abortion facility in Virginia. I'm from Virginia. So I was working there, and we had a lot of trained counselors on staff. And I would come in and I would telling them, in the lunchroom or whatever, about these nightmares that I would be having, about being at Kent, helicopters in the air, bombs falling on the dorms, stuff like that. I mean, really horrible. I would get up in a cold sweat. And then one of the counselors says, let me, I'll stay late with you and I'll talk to you. She was, and she talked me through this, and I came to terms with it. So since then, and having the counseling, I haven't had the nightmares or the fear of bodily injury, that I had for so many years. But it'll never go away. I used to talk when I was a nurse in I taught medical assisting in a community college, and I would go in Virginia. A lot of the other teachers would say, "Oh, my daughter's class would like." So I would go around and talk to middle school kids, and I'd never asked to do it, but they would ask me when they found out, and I'd have a lot of pictures and information. The kids were really, if the kids would be taught this, they would be very open to learning, young people. And this was a long time ago. This was this was almost 30 years ago that I was doing that. So I don't know if it's taught in the school, if you guys know. It should be taught in schools. It should be in history books. I thought it was. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I thought it was. I was under the assumption it was in the history books today, but I may be wrong.
What do you think needs to be done to heal the wounds that were left by what happened at camp?
The truth. Just what she's doing here. If the whole world, there's no, just for somebody to come out and just say, this was for government or whatever, somebody just to come out and say, not people from the left, not just activists from the left, but even the government, even the president now, they have a wonderful senator here in Ohio right now. They do have he's not my senator, but I've read a lot about him. I think he should take an interest and try to make some kind of statement or have people talk just to get this all out, and so these people can find, so we all can find who are involved in this, some kind of peace. It's just, if I just came from a picnic where there's a whole bunch of us. It was like 30, 40 of us that were here, and they all meet. They meet all this was a whole big, they meet. It must be something inside of them that they feel they have to be together this weekend. And maybe even if the Senator Brown, who's a senator here, I think he seems like a very good man. If he could maybe just get some kind of proclamation, get some kind of Memorial Day, get a state day even, maybe that would help to honor these people who died for no reason, for no reason at all. Never should have happened. Sorry. It's just, I went there today. Couldn't you go there? And I just remember after it happened, when I went back I just wanted the clock to just go back, how you just wanted to I just remember going back to the dorm, and I wanted it to, is this really happened? You just want to send the whole clock back an hour. And I remember there was a RA in the building, and our RA in our floor was a really, my father even, she was a real right-winger. an ROTC girl with the uniforms and everything. And my father even had an argument with her the weekend that he was here. She was making up all sorts of crap. Oh, the radicals burned the gas station. He said, what are you spreading rumors like that for? Nobody burned a gas station. What if it exploded? Don't worry about it. He was like, and I remember seeing her, and we just fell into each other's arms. Whatever she felt, whatever I felt, this was a terrible thing that happened. And I just wish I think that would be a good idea, to have like a day, a national, even a state holiday. Maybe not the kids get, but just kind of day, May 4th, make it some kind of state or national thing, just to honor kids that didn't need to die. And make it a Vietnam Day too, if they want, the guys that died in Vietnam or the Vietnamese that died for no good reason at all. So.
Who do you think is responsible for what happened at camp?
I think it was possibly the governor. I don't know. I couldn't begin to say the governor. I believe, or it could be from what I've read, or not read, but what I've seen. I went over the YouTube videos before I came here, just pouring over on the last Saturday night at 2:00 in the morning. And damn, it looks like it was planned. It just looks like it was either the unit commander, they all turned around together. And they got on their knees, I believe. They got on their knees. Some of them were on their knees. So it wasn't like, whoa, shoot here, shoot there, shoot. It was, they were either aiming at some people, I don't know, but it looked planned to me. Somebody planned this. The governor was just, and I always wondered why Kent State, and this was always in the back of my mind too, and Ohio State was having terrible, terrible riots then too. And their school was twice as large as ours. Why Kent State? Why? I just feel the state was going to, if they're going to teach somebody a lesson, it would be too controversial to do it at Ohio State. The football, the money that came in from the school was more than, I always felt that that's just a made-up thing on my part. And my daughter's an alumni of Ohio State, so I love it. So
I'm a Buckeye and I love it, but I love Ohio State football. But I just felt that that could be. I don't know. I was today at the picnic. Somebody said that it was totally planned. That they read something in the Scranton Commission that said that a general's daughter high up was a student here, and he got her out 4 days or 5 days before the shooting. But that was crazy because nobody even knew there was going to be a demonstration 4 or 5 days before the shooting. So I don't know. She said, "Oh, he got her out of here." They were all talking how it was all planned by the government. I don't know. I would never. I don't know.
Why do you think it's important that the truth come out now?
So one day it could happen again. One day it could happen again. It could happen to look at how these crazy right-wingers are demonstrating now. Let them get shot down. How about if it happened to them? Look at the police. Look what they're, it's a right wing now that seems to be out in the streets. They're scary. We don't agree with them. How about if the police that are watching them? It could happen to one of them. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. A young guy, a young national, or better training in crowd control. We didn't know that Ohio was one of 2 states that allowed live ammunition and riot control. Nobody knew that. I mean, I think I'm right about that. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I've heard. That that's why my parents left me there. I mean, I don't think they would have left me if they knew that we were out in the street and could get killed. And so, I don't know if it can happen again, because I'm sure that they don't use live ammunition anymore, anywhere. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want it to happen again. I'm a mother, and I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what the parents of these people feel. I can't even imagine. And I remember Dean Kaler, the one guy who was paralyzed, and the second year, our sophomore year, he's in his wheelchair, and I had my foot operated on. I'd stepped on a needle, and it was really serious. And I came in with my parents after they got me out of the hospital. I was in the hospital. I had in those days, it was a big guy that kept you like 3-4 days in the hospital. And I remember getting myself in, and he was in his wheelchair, and he goes, "Oh, let me see your crutches. If they're like mine are different." And my mother just broke down and crying, and she just went in another room. She couldn't believe that he felt so bad for me having an operation on my foot, and he'll never walk again, So it's just, my mother was just crying the other day. We were talking about it. It's just a terrible, terrible thing.
What do you hope people learn from what happened?
I just wish they learned the truth. I wish that they learned the truth, that there were 4 people that were murdered for no reason. Just because they were kids and they were out demonstrating a war and doing nothing illegal. Nothing. And even if it was illegal, it's not a death sentence. That's what I always say when they go, "Well, they shouldn't have been there. It was illegal for them to be." I said, "Yeah, well, is that a capital crime? And even if it was a capital crime, they'd have a trial." I mean, there's no. I mean, I hope they learn that there's no two sides to this story. There's one side to the story. There's no debate. I can't debate it. There's no debate. I just want somebody to come out, like a senator or the president or somebody, and say, "This was wrong that this happened." They can't do anything to the people that did it. I doubt now, 40 years later, just to say it's wrong. I think that just this was wrong. This shouldn't have happened, and find out if there was an order given. I don't think they ever found that out, but I don't think they will. I'm sure the commander could be dead now. The commander who was 40-some years old is probably not here. I don't know. So I just wish somebody would say it was wrong. Just of authority. That's what I wish. I don't even know what the line is with the school. What does the school say? I don't even know. I don't know. Does the school come out and say this was wrong? I don't know. I don't know. Or do they say it's 2 sides to the story? I really don't. I don't know what the administration of the school says.
Have you shared your story about your experience in a public forum before?
With the kids, with students, with other students. And when I came home to Virginia, the local newspaper called me to come in with my dad. And we were sitting there, and they want to get a good story out of this. And the story is generation against generation. And they were trying to make a story of that. There was no story in my life. There was no story with that. I didn't agree with my parents. They didn't like the way I looked. They didn't like the way my room, but they certainly agree. They did not disagree with anything political with me at all. And we go into this reporter, and he's trying to make a story about
father against daughter, and that just wasn't it. That's not why I went there, and I said, this is not going to work, and my dad said, this is not going to work. I wanted to say what happened, and they wanted to make it a family struggle, and that was better copy at the time. So I don't remember, at times. I don't remember. I remember talking in schools.
Is it important for you to share your story today?
Today it seemed like it was, because a student came up to me on campus that was doing a film for a project, and she asked if she could interview us. And I said, yeah. And then there was these women who had traveled from Pennsylvania. There was a few people, tourists on campus today, and they were asking us questions. And I felt once you get started, you can't stop. So that's how I felt.
Is there anything we haven't asked you that you think is important?
No, I think you got my feelings.
Well,
My main
thank you so
thing.
much
Oh,
for
thank you
sharing
for
with us
having me.
today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. It really was. I think you're doing a great thing. Thank you.